everybody. My name is Sarah Reaper. I'm Brandon Newport.
I'm Josh Hudson.
I'm Andrew Zadi.
Ellie Page. And today we're going to be talking about the separation of immigrant families. And so first of all, we're going to start with an activity. So I need you guys to divide into 3 groups.
Right now, we are dividing into groups of 5. Take note that we have an interactive activity involved in this. We're integrating it really well.
And so we want you guys to read through the scenario and just like, well, for each one, there's like questions like what factors are included in like a certain decision that you'll have to make, and just like things influencing your family. Okay, so just brainstorm ideas to answer those questions, and we're going to be coming around to help you brainstorm.
Sister and parents are gone. Your older sister becomes sick and you believe she may have pneumonia. Parents do not want to take her to the hospital because they fear deportation. Your mother starts to develop the same symptoms as your older sister. If they were deported, you would have the choice to stay because you are a citizen. If you make the choice to take them to the hospital and risk deportation, what factors will affect your decision? How will this decision affect you?
Heavy stuff.
Yeah.
It is.
Good teeth.
So do you, first call, do you take pneumonia? Pneumonia is pretty, it can get pretty critical, yeah, once you fail.
So anyways, on that note,
She's legal though. So
This is a really great activity.
thank you so much. I love the interaction. This is super fun. Thank you.
Well, we could like take night classes in the evening to learn English, to improve on our English, to do a better job.
But how are we going to pay for our night classes? What about a translating job? Can we do something like that, or like some kind of like we can teach?
Maybe capitalize on some of our other skills, like if we're really good cooking. Can we do bartering or cleaning skills? Barter like cookies here, take this and then trade.
The 9-year-old could think of it as a big vacation.
Yes, like after 9. We're not thinking about your future, we're thinking about college. It's a tough decision to all your family.
I mean, the only downfall I can see for them taking her back to Mexico is how rough the culture is there right now. You have drug and gang wars going on. You have immense drugs, not to mention all the diseases going on in Mexico right now. I can see them wanting to leave her, but I'm still sticking with everybody else. That family aspect is no, it's not.
and so if she stayed in America, like what would happen to her? Like where would she go? In your opinion?
Probably foster.
They don't have like any family in America.
No.
She can like traffic and we be on
Step 1, our plan.
Bring her on, come on. Come
So
back
you guys think it would be better to take her back to Mexico? Alright.
People pack up and move every day.
Maybe eventually they could come back. You never know. They could try.
Yeah. Okay.
You have to think that like the parents came to America because they wanted a better life for their kids. So maybe they forced their child to stay there.
No.
Because that's what they wanted in the grand scheme of things.
Parent at that time. Say, come on, maybe you get a little older, you can leave.
But then the kids would think of it as like my parents just left us. They're 9 years old. They're not even know.
Not like that.
I mean, I wouldn't. I don't know.
Yeah, but a lot of times like it's not up to the kids either. Like obviously.
Very good.
So,
We're good?
yeah, I can represent that.
Okay, so I think our first action item is to learn English. That's our number 1, so that we can continue on to get a job and more education, so that we can make money and provide for our family.
But also capitalize on other skills such as construction in order to make sure we don't have to sing to figure out
It's all factored in your participation.
So for the children, like, do you think you would send them somewhere? Or how would you handle that situation?
I think that's.
And if you send those children to school, like whenever you do, like what factors do you think they would encounter?
They're probably going to encounter
Like talking to them and they don't know what they're saying. Like being
I think the school like offers the best resources to learn English though, because if they kept them home and away from school, then it might be better like, in the long run. Yeah.
Well, especially when you're 13, like
So do you think it would be harder for the 13-year-old to say like the 7-year-old?
say yes, they are no longer was speaking their native tongue. Plus, younger children have more I mean, if you added the 3-year-old to daycare, he or she could easily just go to English. So yeah, 7-year-old, what, first, second grade?
Yeah, 13 is like in middle school, almost high school.
that is almost high school.
They're gonna
freshman year.
deal with probably the brunt of all discrimination.
Yeah, so I would even consider getting them in English classes, like bringing them to those night classes or whatever you're doing, to make sure that they're also having that exposure to English, get like formal language training.
And then the community too. Like if other people in their community have children of that age, then they at least can have friends that are of the same understand what they're going through, and can speak the same language.
It could happen. Okay, so bring your attention back up here, and for now you can just kind of put your situations to the side, and we're going to present some information to you. Okay, so we're each kind of gonna like discuss some of the research that's been done in each of our fields about like separation of immigrant families. So first of all, my discipline is French, so it's like looking at the situation from a world language perspective. And so obviously there's not a lot of specific research on separation of families for my discipline, but like other countries do examine the U.S. and their immigration policy, so it is important like for that aspect of it. So Green, this is like coming from a French perspective, looks at the idea of the melting pot in America, and he says like with the melting pot there are two different perspectives. He says that either immigrants all melt together as Americans but at the same time kind of keep their national identity, or there is no melting pot at all, and that results in a scary multiculturalism. And like with that, how can the society even function? Another thing that this discipline looks at is anti-immigration and nativist sentiment on a worldwide scale. And it's definitely growing more throughout the world. There was a study done in Britain, and in this study they like passed out surveys to people to try and get an idea of like where this nativist sentiment was coming from, and like overall there were a lot of different reasons for it, but they determined that it's the government's responsibility to educate the people and get rid of these negative attitudes. Sorry. So the nativist sentiment adds additional pressure and stress on immigrants that are already dealing with family separation. And then this idea with the two different perspectives on the melting pot also gives us an idea of where like Americans could be coming from when they're like looking at immigrants and how they're acting around immigrants. So I'm also going to touch on education. Ambiguous loss is something that immigrant children often have to deal with. It's the impossibility to mourn and heal after losing loved ones who are physically absent but psychologically present. Research in this field has proven that the education gap and high school dropout rates increase significantly in family separation with immigrants. This is worse in kids who moved to the U.S. at a later age. For example, like with this group, there was a 13-year-old who was coming to America, And so that 13-year-old has a much higher risk of like struggling in school or dropping out of high school than say the 7-year-old in that family. Also, in the education field, so these kids, in addition to learning their like already challenging schoolwork, they are also often learning English on top of that. And then a lot of times in separation of families, parents can be deported, and then that child is put in foster care. And in foster care homes, children, or the schools in that district aren't adequately equipped to deal with those immigrant children and like maybe their different languages.
I'm going to talk to you about cultural attitudes towards immigration. So, Bickman reported that with the U.S. being a nation of immigrants, this can often lead to negative schemas within society today, which means like obviously all of us are here because one of our ancestors came here. So society tends to be proud of that we all come from another nation. But it leads to negative attitudes towards immigration because today people believe that if people arrive from another country, like perhaps illegally, but from a different means, what their ancestors did is wrong, and it just creates a lot of issues because they view it as something that's very negative. And ethnocentrism has been found to be positively correlated with support for more strict immigration policies among white Americans, which just means that their pride for who they are and their beliefs and who they are often lead them to want stricter policies against other people coming to our country, which is the same with nationalism being linked. Their pride for the U.S. makes them lean more towards stricter policies because they believe that we should keep the greatness of the American spirit situation. And then how this affects children. Braybeck, Lakes, and Hunter reported that approximately 4.5 million children live in mixed-status families, and this means that the child may be a legal citizen of the U.S., but one or more parents and perhaps older siblings are not legal citizens, so they live their day-to-day lives with risk of their relatives being deported. And 11.7 million undocumented migrants currently live in the U.S., and there are 5,100 children who are currently in foster care as a result of their parents either being deported or being detained in risk of deportation. And immigrant parents tend to have a higher investment in their child's academic skills. So when a study was done that compared immigrants to parents who were born in the U.S., and they found that over time, immigrant parents pushed their children harder and made education a higher importance than the parents of the children who were born in the U.S.
So I'll be focusing more on the effects of immigration and deportation on mental health in both children and adults. So first off, deportation, which is often considered a traumatizing event, can often be a gateway to some sort of mental illness. And I have a video for you guys to watch.
Brandy was 8 years old when her father was taken from her, and her story is not unique. She's just one of the 100,000 American children each year who lose at least one parent to deportation. And now she's just one of the many children Nora Sandiego provides for.
I'm the legal guardian for 817 kids.
Yes, you heard her correctly. Nora Sandiego, a Miami resident, is providing for 817 U.S. citizen children who have been affected by parental deportations.
Most of my kids suffer a lot because they don't know that what point of their life they can be alone because their father or mother was deported or could be deported.
Family unity is a nonpartisan value. However, mixed-status families bring a unique twist when dealing with immigration policy. Should immigrants who have established American families be forgiven for their illegal entry into the country? President Obama says yes, and has attempted to address these issues through executive action. However, real and lasting change must come from Congress, and until that happens, many American children remain uncertain of their family's future.
So that kind of goes in to show that these events really can affect children at a young age. Goldbus et al. Found significant results showing that both immigration policy and deportation actually increases the child's risk of depression. It also said that parental deportation can cause increased emotional and behavioral distress such as sleeping problems, depression, anxiety, and poorer grades. So now focusing more on the effects of immigration and deportation on mental health in adults. As said before, but also stated in another study that I had found, basically said that immigration and deportation are basically a stressful, or can be considered a stressful life experience in which the adaptation of a mental illness is common. And I had one more, focusing more on the mental health of adults.
According to the latest data, the federal government is now kicking undocumented immigrants out of the country at a rate of more than 1,000 a day. That's 400,000 each year.
About half agree to leave on their own ticket. The rest get a free ride in handcuffs. John Hollandhorst is back from one of those flights, and he joins us with the second of 2 reports.
Well, Deanie, ICE, the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency, has planes taking off every day from various cities. The deportees face a worrisome future as they cross the border.
The Gateway Bridge connects Brownsville, Texas, to a region of Mexico where just last week a drug gang murdered 72 people. It's the ultimate destination for deportees on this flight out of Salt Lake. Until he was nabbed by ICE agents, Alberto Perez had never been in a plane.
It feels fun on the airplane, but it feels sad at the same time that I gotta go somewhere that I don't really know.
Born in Mexico, he came here at about age 5 and never went back. It's a typical story for 50 or 60 deportees who lift off from Salt Lake every Thursday, headed for a country they barely remember. Isidro Hernandez is okay with it.
I'm kind of excited to start out a new adventure in Mexico.
But Perez worries about his wife and son and his future.
And everything that I have is here. My job, my wife, my family, my mom and dad. There's pretty much nothing in Mexico for me.
The prisoners are in handcuffs, belly chains, leg restraints, but there's rarely trouble.
A lot of these people, it's their first flight, so they're pretty anxious about that. And what's going to happen with their futures.
Jim Donaldson supervises ICE flight operations.
There's drug dealers, there's violent criminals. We're taking a criminal element off the street. That's important. The average about 4,200 a week is what we're doing by last count.
These heavily guarded flights go to 80 different countries, but the majority of the people in handcuffs are headed to the Mexican border.
I can't think negative, because if I think negative things might start happening. So I gotta stay positive and just try to succeed in whatever I do once I get down there.
We flew from Salt Lake to Las Vegas and picked up more deportees, then to El Paso for more. Heading for Harlingen, Texas, we had 130 prisoners aboard. Everyone knows some deportees will turn around and sneak right back into the U.S.
There's people out here, it's not their first time.
Immigration attorney Aaron Tarrant says many people arrested by ICE agents get so frustrated sitting in jail, they agree to be deported and take a round trip to Mexico.
In reality, the plan is to come back in to support your family.
We have job security. This is always going to be like this.
By the time we land in Harlingen, the sun is setting. It's getting dark as buses head for Brownsville. When we see the Gateway Bridge, it's nighttime. Alberto Perez gets his cuffs off just before crossing the border.
This is my country, Mexico, but I don't know anything of it.
Walking across the bridge, he worries about thieves and assassins ahead of him, his family behind him.
I already cried twice in the freaking butt. Yeah.
As he leaves the U.S., he says it's forever.
I'm trying to hang on there because it's a rough road out here.
And going into some more results that were found in the studies I looked at. In the results, they showed that over 12% of men and 40% of women showed indicative symptoms of some sort of mental illness. And also the outlook on immigrants, such as being corrupt or criminals, can also play a factor on some sort of mental or cognitive ability.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about a little bit more of the statistical economic side of things right now. The Center for Immigration Studies had a couple of studies out on how immigrants are using programs here in the United States and a couple other things. And so there were three major things I wanted to go over. The first one is employment. So a couple statistics for you. 1.3 million fewer working age natives are holding a job in 2015 than they were in 2007. So their statistics are decreasing. However, immigrants working is up 1.8 million. So as natives holding a job decreases, immigrants that are holding a job is improving and increasing. 10.7 million working age immigrants unemployed or not in the labor force in 2015. There were 10.7 million. And there were 5.9 million immigrants and native part-time workers who were still looking for jobs. They were forced, a lot of people are forced into part-time work because of that. And another part of employment that's big in immigration is entrepreneurship is actually becoming a very popular aspect among immigrants. Why do you think that is? Why do you think entrepreneurship is becoming more popular? For those of you at home, I'm integrating a critical thinking aspect into this presentation, so take note. But why do you think people are starting their own businesses? Why do you think immigrants are starting their own businesses?
Because they can't find work or people won't hire them.
Exactly. And what's a major obstacle for immigrants when they can't find work?
Language barriers.
Language barriers, discrimination, things that we definitely hit on in this course quite a lot. So entrepreneurship is actually becoming quite popular. Obamacare is the second one I want to hit on. They benefit significantly from Obamacare. They are the top beneficiaries. They are more likely to use it than natives, mostly because of the level of income that they have and the fact that they're uninsured right off the bat. And immigrant families are 42% of the Medicaid growth from 2011 to 2013, and 49% of that 42 are actually children. Welfare is the third topic I want to hit on, and low education levels are directly linked to high welfare use, just to keep in mind. 49% of legal immigrant households actually utilize one or more of the welfare programs that our government offers, and this was in 2012, so it's a fairly recent statistic. And this is opposed to 30% of native-born households. So 19% more of immigrant households, legal immigrant households, are using these welfare programs. All immigrants can actually receive welfare from their U.S.-born children, so even if they weren't born here, if they have a child that's born here, they can also benefit from their welfare. And as I stated before, education, major player in the welfare system.
I'm going to talk a little bit more about the economic hardships that children face after their parents have been deported. So this goes along with some of you guys' situations that you have. They pretty much have two options, the parents do when they go to court. They can either leave their children here and put them in foster care, or they can take them with them back to their homeland. Some of the problems that they face, or when they want to take their children back with them, is that most of the countries that they're coming from are already in poverty or third world countries. That's why they come to America. Then the children face the same struggles that their parents did when they wanted to come to America, if they want to come back to America later on in their life. And then the other option would be leaving their children in America. They have, like Allie talked about a little bit, but children have poor education opportunities when they are left here in foster care, which makes it hard for them to find upper middle class work. For example, like management positions or sales positions in big companies, which is like they have to live in low class society for the rest of their life pretty much if they stay in America. And there's two types of people that work in the U.S. society, people who work to live and people who live to work. And they're usually stuck in a work-to-live situation where they're working every single day. They don't have time for anything because they just have to work their tails off in order to make enough money to survive. These are references. Now we're going to go back to our group activity though.
Okay, so we hope that this gave you guys like more ideas of everything that plays into like the separation of families and deportation. So what we want you to do is get back into your groups, and a group at a time, we're going to have you read your situation to the rest of the class, and then tell us some things that you hadn't thought of before, but now see like play a part after you've heard our presentation.
Situation one, go ahead.
Well, our situation is pretty much we're a family, but we're illegal immigrants, but we have a daughter, Melanie.
Yeah, Melanie. but.
Oh, shit. I don't think that's Mexican, eh? All right. But we're getting deported, and we're trying to come up with our own, I don't know, we're in a situation, so we're trying to come up with our own plan, whether we want to keep her in America or take her with us, because she's an legal citizen. So we came up with, after hearing your presentation, we're going to take her with us. Because being here, she's obviously not going to have a great education being a foster child, and the chances of her being adopted at 9 isn't really a good chance. And if she's going to go through all these hardships and all these hard times in America, why not just do it with her family back in Mexico with us? So we're going to take her with us.
Perfect. Anything else to add from your group?
And she can come back whenever she wants because she's a
She can
citizen.
come back whenever.
All right, so our situation involved, I'll just read it. Your family has emigrated from another country. You are a citizen of the U.S., but your older sister and parents are not. Your older sister becomes sick, and you believe she may have pneumonia. Your parents do not want to take her to the hospital because they fear deportation. Your mother starts to develop the same symptoms as your older sister. If they were deported, you would have the choice to stay because you are a citizen. Do you make the choice to take them to the hospital and risk deportation? What factors will affect your decision? How will this decision affect you? So what we discussed was there's a hard line of figuring out, all right, at what point do we take them to the hospital? Because, you know, pneumonia can turn into a pretty serious illness. And we decided that if it came to a point where the illness was severe enough, we would take them to the hospital and risk deportation. Simply because it's either death, we kind of describe it as death or deportation. And so is it better to die or to just have to be removed from the country? We also discussed the fact that deportation, you know, it varies based on a lot of circumstances. And for one, your sister's older, your parents are older. They've been in the country for probably a decent amount of time. So, you know, kind of have to also weigh that, like, will they be deported? Will they be penalized in some other way? What might happen? But we did decide that we would take them to the hospital.
You would take them?
Yes, we would take them to the hospital.
Yep. Perfect. Good job.
Thank you.
Our situation says you are a father that has just moved your family to America from the Middle East. You have a wife and 3 kids. Your kids are 13, 7, and 3 years old. You and your family know English, but not very well. So they still need to utilize other resources in order to learn more. You need to find a job in order to pay the bills. You and your wife both went to high school, but neither of you have a college education and are moving to a suburban, affluent area in Ohio. You also need to enroll your children in school. What obstacles will you face, and how will you overcome these?
So what we decided to talk about is they have 3 kids, a 13, 7, and 3. The 3-year-old can't go to school, but the 13 and 7-year-old, some of the main barriers like they will encounter will definitely be like a language barrier and being able to like fit in. So we thought to help them, because education, as you guys have all stressed, is very important. Kind of get them in a community, although they're moving to suburbia, like get them in a local community that like supports their religion or supports their background, and kind of immerse them within the culture to not only help them learn English but also kind of get a stable footing in the country.
So as you guys have seen, there are like so many variables that like immigrants are facing, and so okay. So with all this, we have developed an action plan. So I'm just going to give like the overview of the action plan. So what we're proposing is an after-school program that would not be associated with the school, and it would be for English language learning students. The objective is to give these kids a place to go after school to continue practicing their English, because otherwise they may return to a home where no English is spoken at all, and also provide any other type of support necessary, such as like physical and mental health and like nutrition.
Do you guys think there's anything else that needs to be kind of put into our action plan? What, from your scenarios and from listening to our presentation, what do you see that needs to be added?
Um,
also possibly be maybe like an education component where you could serve as like a mentor to maybe students who are just learning English on other sites?
To help with the language barrier. Okay, perfect. Anyone else? Go ahead.
I would also suggest possibly maybe an awareness campaign to let a lot of people know about this issue. And in doing so, this may promote some people that are higher up that have some income and investing in your after-school programs. So there will be adequate funding for, educating the students, feeding the students.
Okay, so like a marketing, business administration aspect to it is what needs to be kind of integrated.
I think another big thing that we want to incorporate is having some sort of counselors or social workers to be able to bring in, especially with a lot of these kids that are either dealing with their parents being deported or dealing with the stereotypes that are being brought upon them. I think being able to have someone to talk to would definitely help out a lot. Who would actually do this would more than likely be volunteers for the community, religious leaders, teachers, be able to come in and be able to do these after-school programs to either help educate more effectively, have some more help learning English, because I know with the language barrier, that's going to be huge in continual learning. Through funding, this is obviously going to be funded through grants. The school isn't going to have any sort of incorporation, so all the money is going to be coming in through outside funding.
And we also believe that as the program builds, the community will become more aware of how effective it is, and so more donations would continue to come in, and that would increase funding.
And then lastly, with transportation, being able to get to and from, I think this would actually help out the parents, if parents are still in the situation a lot. So I know with a lot of parents that are working, school usually ends with me at least, ended about 2 o'clock, 2:30, and some parents are still working, and so being able to get your children back home is sometimes a difficult problem. And so how this would work was there would be some sort of carpooling, being able to utilize the school busing, to be able to have the children be able to take to the specific location, either at the school or whatever location, such as a church, and then allowing that extra time afterwards, maybe having them over for another 2 hours, would allow the parents to be able to then get off work and still be able to pick up their kids on time.
Just lastly, we said that we would also provide dinner for the children each time we have the program, because like Josh said, with parents working, sometimes it's hard to have dinner ready, and if the immigrant parents are coming from a lower income, it might be hard to provide dinner, so we just want to help out in that aspect of it too.
And those dinners would be provided by possibly the local food pantry, donating food, and again, it would be volunteers coming in and preparing the food. And again, as the program is starting, we realize that it might not be realistic to have dinner for these children every single night, but as the program grows and continues, we believe that we would get more volunteers to come in and people donating food and cooking for the kids.
So do you guys think there's anything else that we can incorporate in this program?
Yeah, we want your feedback.
I think you're solid.
Thank you.
Great.